Are you ready to become awesomer? Hello, everyone. My name is Umar Hamid. I'm your host on the No Limit Selling podcast, where industry leaders share their tips, strategy, and advice on how you can become better, stronger, faster. Just before we get started, I've got a question for you. Do you have a negative voice inside your head? We all do, right? I'm going to help you remove that voice in under 30 days guaranteed. Not only remove it, but transform it. So instead of the voice that sabotages you, there's one that propels you to much higher levels of performance and success. There's a link in the show notes. Click on it to find out more. All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the No Limit Selling podcast. Today, I am joined by Kentucky.Delk. He is an author. Apparently, he doesn't have a plan, so I'm not sure what's going on here. Jeremy, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me, Omar.
Superb. What's kind of interesting is that old saying, if you want God to laugh, tell him you have a plan. And, even all the militaries of the world, pretty much they know that, what's the great philosopher Mike Tyson, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth, which I love.
Exactly.
And so tell me about what made you write the book, and then we'll kind of delve back into your career and your entrepreneurship.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'd love to. So I think, a good friend of mine, go to some masterminds together named Roland Frazier. He kind of hit me with this one day and said, Jeremy, you don't value what you know because you know it. And it was very simple, but a bit profound, right? And I think when you look back at the last 20 plus year career that I've had, I've got, some 500 fastest growing companies and some taking companies public and private and successful exits. And everyone has that CV, if you will, of accomplishments. But what I really realized is that that's just all it is. It's just your CV. It isn't really that impressive or important. It's what happened behind the scenes that no one really saw or talks about, which were all those failures, right? So that was a drive to originally start to write the book. And it started off very much as a business book of, lists of accomplishments, failures, overcoming adversity, et cetera. And then it quickly, ramped into a memoir because I felt a bit disingenuous, right? That, you're only talking about the business side of it, but business is very personal as well, right? So I really started sharing in that personal side of things.
So it's kind of brought up two things for me. Number one, there's so many overnight successes in the music world. And when you talk to them, it's like, yeah, dude, it took 10 years of dive bars and being more people in the band than the audience. And then instantly we became overnight successes. But it takes effort and tenacity to keep on going. And to the outside world, it looks like, oh my God, you're so lucky. You came up with this idea, Jeremy, and you made it happen. It's like, nope, it took a lot of bruises to get there. And so why do you think we have this romanticism because of the overnight success?
It's a good question. I don't know if I've been asked that. I think it's more of someone that just, hey, they're not confident in themselves in doing it. And then they got lucky or,
yeah.
Oh, wow, that's happened. Well, they just had the right place. And I don't discount luck. Sometimes being in the right place, does help. But, I've found that the harder I work, the luckier I get, right? You hear that adage. And I think so many people, instead of romanticizing, I think so many people have this, in my opinion, misconception. I think it's in childhood, within school, and then society, that failure is such a bad thing. In reality, I think it should be celebrated, and that's really discovered because that's where you truly learn.
Yeah.
And it just, I think that's the biggest piece. And for me, like writing this book for the last, summarizing the last 42 years of my life, but really the last 20 years of business, I didn't want to just talk about some theory of like, if you don't have a plan, you're going to be more fluid and you can make more decisions, all of which may be true. But I went from small town kid from Nowheresville, Kentucky, to, building a multi-million-dollar portfolio at 19, to blowing it up in 4 days, to a successful but short career on Wall Street, to a building material business making windows in Germany and Italy, which I knew nothing about, to real estate development, to regenerative medicine and healthcare, human health, pharmacy, epigenetics, back to coaching, speaking, and podcasting. There is, I assure you, no playbook nor map to get to any of those steps, right? But you make forward motions, you get, you take action, and life's the journey, right? And I think that's where people get hung up. They have to have it all figured out, and they suffer from this analysis paralysis by analysis. And that's how great ideas and great companies either fail or never even get off the ground and get started, because you're just so worried about having it all figured out. None of us have it figured out, man. You don't know.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to something that you said a little while ago, only because it's a funny quote. I'm not sure whose quote it is, but it's totally genius. Success is all about luck. Ask any failure. Uh, but yeah, so number two, basically you can't stick with anything, can you, Jeremy? It's all this journey, but that's the joy of life. Is I think there is a lot of martial arts have these patterns, and the patterns are designed to give you the ability to hold your own no matter what the situation happens to be. And I think that's kind of what you're describing in your book, is basically, how to have the nimbleness of mind that when things go sideways, that you've got the ability to make sense of it and make a better decision at the moment. Am I reading that right, or do you want to kind of alter that a little bit?
Yeah, well, um, for sure, there's definitely a piece of that. But I think the other component is you may have the wrong plan. So great thing, and I talk about this in depth in my book. We went into I went into the window and door business with a
Yes.
business partner of mine solely to have an arbitrage, because I was living in New York, and I was building single family and multifamily homes back in Bardstown, Kentucky. So I thought, hey, one of the things you need for a house is windows. Might as well, be a partner, and then I would save some money there. That was what it was. Then I ended up getting in the retail window space. If I had put down pen and paper that I wanted to be the greatest retail window salesperson, owner, maybe I wanted to get 5 locations, it really would have been the wrong plan, because it wouldn't have led me to, you know, doing, Ritz Carlton's, Carl Icahn's house, Calvin Klein in the Hamptons, these massive multi-million-dollar window projects, flying over 80 to 100 architects to Germany and Italy to the factories that we were making our own brand. And so it just would have been the wrong idea, because we were only seeing, what's under that iceberg, right? We only seen the tip at the top, and
Right.
so much more. And it's just because we didn't know where were we going into.
Okay.
And I think it just, not everyone should be an entrepreneur. And I think
Okay. So I'm going to time you out there just for a
yeah.
second, because for a lot of people, they can't move without a plan. And having a plan is about confidence. And so what you're suggesting is, had I made a plan, I would have stayed in a really small space. So kind of walk me through that, because I think there is, like great insight there is sometimes just having faith in yourself and letting something unfold as it should isn't really taught in Harvard Business School.
Well, I don't know that I ever actually articulated it as clearly as you, but it's what I meant to say a lot of times. And it's really not profound. People tend not to want to have not to get started without the plan, solely because of the lack of confidence, right? They are
Mm.
so scared of failing and what someone else is going to think of them, that gives them that answer. That's actually so profound. And I think for me, what's happened is why I'm an overnight success and things come easier. It's because I've gotten right hooked, kicked in the head. I've had a lot of those failures where every time I put myself back up, I now like, well, I've seen that, so it doesn't scare me as much. So I'll just go through and go through. So that takes time and kind of grit. When I coach clients now and I kind of work with them, and you probably do the same thing, I'm a masochist anomaly that just like I need to go in without a net on a tightrope, 10,000 feet in the air, and I just figure it out. That edge for me helps me get there, but I'm not the norm, and I don't recommend anyone doing that unless you're wired the same way. But what you can do is figure out where your comfort zone is and just scrape past that, right? And then you're going to be like, well, if I'm failure, we'll talk about it. what does it mean if you fail, right? Would you be embarrassed? Would you lose money? Would you go through? And if you can just go through and push yourself over, and even if you do fail, you realize, hey, it wasn't the end of the world, and I can keep moving forward and pushing it through. Then each step as you go, you'll get further and further along in your
Absolutely.
journey.
So two things there. Once I saw this guy do a keynote speech and he was talking about failure and falling down, and literally on stage he goes boom and does this fall. And he says, even when you fall down, you're 6 feet closer to your goal than you were before you fell, which was like freaking genius.
Yeah.
And two, I read this. Well, I heard of this book. I'm not read it yet. It's by Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, and he had this book that he was talking advice about, family, politics, finances, and at the end of every chapter, he had this one sage piece of advice: Jeremy, at least you're not dead. And and so people are so afraid of dying, either in their social lives. People will judge me, make fun of me, think I'm a failure, or physically. I mean, how many times have you come close to being financially bankrupt? And people listening to this, oh yeah, I can't. I've come close, but you still survived, and you still have a house, a car, family, and so I think learning from your mistakes. One of the things that I really like doing or teaching is very much when something bad happens is to do one simple thing. I'm going to demonstrate it here, and is like just take a breath as just a little reset, and then take a look at what's the universe trying to teach me from this. And I'll tell you the other steps later. But sometimes we get so focused on not failing that that's what we end up doing.
Yeah. And like, I know we're doing lives, and then you'll post this podcast out, but I've got like a really crazy bit of insight for all of
Please.
everything. No one cares about
No, Jeremy, but people are watching me. I'm a trendsetter in my family.
yeah, no one really cares, right? I think that we really celebrate. Oh my god, like they don't. They may look and you go through, and you may be a talk of something for a minute. They don't care about you. They care about them.
Yep.
That's it. And sooner you accept that you have that confidence in, some of my openings in my book. I lived in New York a long time. I curse, I go through. I'm authentic, and the people who accept me for me, I know I love, and we have that peace. If I can help you and we don't connect, that's fine. Like, but it's life's too short, right? You have to just be comfortable with yourself and do what's doing it for you. There's so many people that are doing whatever it is to get someone else's, acceptance
Approval.
or
Yeah.
approval and reassurance. Be the best you, whether that's coaching,
So
business. Just be happy with yourself. I'm telling you, if you can do that and stop giving a shit what anyone else thinks, other than your wife, family, your kids, like people that look up to you. Besides that, your life, I promise you, you will find the biggest amount of peace and self confidence. It's like your breath. It's like
yeah.
a new world. It really is.
So adding on to that, I fully agree. I think one of the most important things is intent. And if the intent of this interview was to show you how smart I am, Jeremy, this would be a totally different vibe to the show. Uh, so I think finding your most strongest authentic self isn't a selfish gesture if your intent is to do good in the world or with your family. Because one of what brought it up was you were saying, well, for your family and your loved ones, you need to be, more cognizant of it. I would challenge that a little bit and say, once you become the authentic self and your intent is to love and help your family do better, that is the least selfish thing you can do. But it's a scary proposition because we're not trained how to find your authentic self, and B, we're so programmed to, oh, in business, I need to be the smart one, or I need to be this one, or I need to be this. And we take on these personas that are not us. And it takes so much energy to maintain who we think we are versus who we're supposed to be. And that once you become your authentic self, as I can kind of tell with you, Jeremy, is you and I are talking here. If I met you at a coffee shop and just two dudes drinking coffee, I'd see the same person there. Or if you were hanging out with, somebody from Elon Musk, the same Jeremy is going to show up. What it
Yeah.
creates is this sense of safety for people around you. And it's like, I'm not sure what it is about you, but I just feel better when I'm around you. And I think that's the superpower all of us have. And that's part of the journey of being human and reaching our potential is not going outward, but going inward.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's, I mean, I can go emotional. I've been through a ton of therapy and all these things, but being vulnerable is crucial to that. You have to be vulnerable, and that goes into self confidence. I don't think you can have true connection with love, partners, business, unless you have that vulnerability to really put yourself out there and just be able to, you know, be real. And I mean, I invest in business and I VC, I do all these things. The first kid that comes in and says, "Oh yeah, I've got it all figured out," you won't get a dollar from me. Like,
Mhm.
I'm creative. I'm all over the place. I'm a visionary. You want me to, like, take something incrementally and go 7%? I'm not your guy. Be okay with who you are, and then surround yourself with the people and the team around you that helps fill in the gaps of where you're not. And it's a lot easier to live because you're right. You have some of these people that are on social media living, hey, this is who I am. And then to my family, and this, dude, that's exhausting. I couldn't
Yeah.
imagine being that. Like, this is who I am, whether we're doing $1 billion deal in the boardroom, whether we're at my son's lacrosse game tonight, like, this is me. And that's it. It's a much easier way to live. Just like telling the truth, being honest. I mean, it's it's easier. It's a much it's a
Less
safer
effort.
place. It's less effort. Yeah.
So I think part of the problem is people don't realize how to uncover who they are. So I think fundamental human right is to figure out your purpose in life. Because once you figure out your purpose in life, it allows you, when you're building a company, to make the mission of the company your personal purpose. And when you do that, you don't have, it just brings clarity and strength to you as a business person and as a business. And when you take a look at your values around business, like I values for me, it's like having fun is really important with this laughter with the employees, with the customers, making a difference. And those fundamental things are important to me as a human being. And if I map them over to my company, then my company is a true representation of me and I can be the poster child without having to get a consultant go, we're here for the dedication of the planet and the dolphins and all
Right.
that BS because it's inauthentic. And I think there's power there. But before we go further, Jeremy, what I'd like you to do is dig deep into the memory banks and tell me about a particular time where fear came up where you made a mistake, but it was took a while to get the insight of what the lesson was and to move forward and let the Jeremy 2.0 emerge. Because it's easy to say write it down, but when you live it, sometimes it's hard to go. So I'll give you a quick example. Sometimes I'm doing something and it's a loved one says, "Do you realize you did that?" And it's like, "No, did I?" And sometimes you don't even see it till it's there. So have you had one of those where you came at this crossroad and it took you a while to figure out what it was and then you crossed the Rubicon?
Yeah, I do. So it's fresh in memory from the bank, so I don't have to dig too hard because of this painstaking process of writing a
A
memoir.
book, yeah.
But I mentioned a little bit of highlights of my career, and I mentioned that I grew up. It was a $30,000 portfolio. It was an inheritance into about $2 million in a year and a half. I was 19, and I blew it up in 4 days. Massive failure. Into the world's caving in. And what I didn't tell you was that $30,000 was inheritance from my dad dying. So
Oh, wow.
when I was 7, he had a tragic motor accident, and I talk about it in the book and talk about being vulnerable. I mean, I shared everything. There was, I mean, the good and the bad, and I'm an imperfect human like the rest of us, and I think maybe even more so in some parts of my life. But there's a for probably 30 years, there at least 30 years of my life, I there was a chance I was supposed to be on the back of that bike with him. And
Yeah.
I struggle with that a lot. And I think that's what drove me so much is that you have this idea of having to do more, see more, be more, because you're not promised today, much less tomorrow. And that really hit me hard because I've made money, lost money, made millions. That's fine, but losing my money, right? It's my money, right? If
And
I
losing that
right,
money,
right.
especially.
Well, that money wasn't mine, and I squandered it. I was a disappointment, and it was I was in a dark place. Um, I didn't come from any money. My parents were postal workers. My mom and my stepdad were postal workers. So like we had a comfortable childhood, but like not like we were wealthy. So when I lost all that money, I had expenses. I had bought a condo at 19, like every college freshman does. I had a brand new car. I had all these expenses, and I had a choice, right? I could have my story could have been pretty short, not this thick, right? It
Right.
could have been, hey, young kid makes it, loses everything and goes back home, but that wasn't going to be my story. So after about 6 days of feeling bad for myself, I picked myself up because I had to, and that happenstance, a few odd jobs led me to become the youngest institutional equity trader at Fidelity history, and then my career went on. But it was only until about 5 years ago that I really kind of did some deep therapy work and realized that that 100% was the best thing in my life that ever happened to me,
Hmm.
losing the money, because it taught me the self-confidence, right? And it's happened throughout, that I can overcome adversity and you can pick yourself up,
Yeah.
and you don't always know what it holds, and you live your life and just keep going forward, which a lot of these lessons are in that book.
Yeah.
So it taught me that. And I think, it really surmised for me that it wasn't me losing my dad and blaming myself for not being on that bike.
Right.
Like, it was the level of instability that I saw after with my mom and all that. That's what's the driving force for me, financial security and all that for my kids, because I didn't want to be dependent and be in that piece. And I wasn't vulnerable. I never wanted to get hurt again, right? I never wanted to be left again. So that I talk about all this in the book, like the personal side. I lived a life through, someone else's eyes that would be overnight success and private jets and doing all the crap and spending. But I was miserable, man. I had the cars and
Yeah.
watches, but wasn't happy. And
So,
yeah,
so just adding to that, thank you for sharing that story. And two, there's a really good chance that you would have turned into a dick. Being young, that much wealth, I mean, is humbling losing it. So there's probably a gift in there somewhere.
for sure.
And so some of the things that, my greatest accomplishments, I'll tell you about one of them. This young lady came in to see me, and what prompted her to come in, her mom brought her in, is that mom's making dinner in the kitchen, and this young lady is we'll call her Janet, not her real name, obviously. So Janet's upstairs, she's 11, in her bedroom, and there's a knock on the door, more of a pounding on the door. So mom stops cooking, goes to the front door, takes care of the issue, comes back, and as she's coming back to the kitchen, she shouts up to Janet, says, Janet. Doesn't hear her back, and she starts panicking. Oh, what's going on? So she goes up to see her and can't find her. She's not in her bedroom, she's not in the bathroom. Now the mother's really freaking out, and she goes into the master bedroom, into the closet there, and she's standing there trembling, and she's urinated herself in her mom's closet. And
Wow.
so mom's freaking out, and she talks to a friend that says, send Janet in to see Umar, he'll be able to help. So she brings her in, and our mutual friend told me the story that when Janet was 3, her dad went into the bathroom. He was a heroin addict, and he OD'd and died. And now mom's remarried to this, really amazing guy. And when they come in, Janet's sitting in front of me, and it's like, I just get this intuitive sense, Janet, would you like to meet your dad? And she goes, yeah. And so I put her in a hypnotic trance, had her go into a cottage. There's 2 chairs. She sits in one. Just say your dad's name, and he's going to appear in the chair before you. When he's there, just lift up your finger. So she does this. Now's your chance to tell your dad how much you love him, how much you miss him. He's going to respond back when that conversation's over. Just lift up your finger. If you're angry at him, disappointed, open issues, now's the time to discuss. He's going to respond back, lift up the finger. And now it's your dad's turn to tell you how much he loves you and misses you and cares for you. When that conversation's over, lift up your finger. And if your dad's got any kind of disappointments, he's going to share them with you. You can discuss it. After that, lift up your finger. And then all this is happening in her mind. And then I go, before your dad goes, if you want, you can get up and give him a hug. And she actually gets up out of the chair with her eyes closed and walks over about 3 feet and goes like this to hug him.
Wow.
And I'm going, oh my God. But she comes back, sits down, and then I go, I'm going to count to 3. I'm going to get to 3. You're going to feel fantastic. 1, 2. and she comes out of her trance. And then she tells me what's going on is that since her dad died, she's convinced that someone's going to come and kill her mother.
Wow.
And she's been living with this deep in her unconscious, and that pounding on the door just triggered it.
Wow.
And mom reports back a week later saying uh, she's doing better at school, better in sports, and she's just a lot happier. And we had no idea this was going on underneath because she was masking it so well.
Wow.
And so I think that's just the ability to help human beings uh, become their best selves is, I think, the journey for all of us.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing your journey, and especially those spots where it was our most trying times. And I think oftentimes people hide those from themselves and people around them. And at the end of the day, is you talked about vulnerability. Vulnerability is not a weakness, it's really a strength. When you can share those stories, when you share it with the intent of, I want you to feel sorry for me,
Yeah. No.
not good. When it's like, hey, I want to share this just so you know who I am. And if this adds value to you, uh, when we do this in a workshop, I ask, does anybody judge, uh, this person that stood up badly? And everyone's like, no.
Right.
There's like 50, 60 people. And that's the reality we need to realize is people are compassionate, loving, and the only thing you have to do for them is be yourself.
That's right. I couldn't agree more. It's powerful.
So, Jeremy, right now you're really successful. And when you're sitting down with someone that you're mentoring, what's one piece of advice that you'd like to share with our listeners that you share with them that allows them to maybe dream bigger dreams or to show up more powerfully?
Yeah. I mean, it starts really with one question, and it's often several questions after that because the first answer is
Mm.
mostly BS. But it's really, what's your why? Why are you doing this? Because they all come to you. I want to build a bigger business. I want to sell my company. And it's always the blah blah blah. And then I'm like, okay, why? What's your why? And until you dig down and peel back that oven to win onion rather, where you can really say, hey, it's visceral. You had this feeling, and it could be because I just want to spend time with my family, or freedom, or I want to make impact and change the world, or it's because I see a problem with humanity, or the environment. And until you get to that visceral feeling where it's that obsession, you're not there yet. And then once I have them there, and they understand truly where their why is, then you start building and working around that. And then that comes with a set of values, and that does that come through it, and then are you doing everything in your business? So it really starts there, and if you can break that down into that really simple understanding, it changes the game, because most people are doing things, as we said, for other people, and they're chasing someone else. It's not their goals. It's not. That's what it's not. They're not aligned, and they've done it so long they can't recognize it.
Yeah, you
It's
lose
maybe
yourself.
yeah, yeah. You do it, and you just, well, this is what I do. This is what I do. This is what I do. And like, well, why? Why?
Yeah, and just two things on that. Number one, that once you know that, that's the foundation you can build a life upon, and that's the foundation you need because you are going to get kicked in the balls on this journey. And the stronger that foundation is, the more resilient you are, the more you can kind of rebound quickly. And the second thing is, dear listeners and viewers, you don't have to have a why that's I want to make the world a better place or something like noble. It just could be like, I really want to build a great company. That is my why. I want to leave something for my kids as a legacy. And it could be a very mercenary kind of thing. It doesn't have to be a curing cancer kind of thing, but I agree 100%. Once you get down to that fundamental, why are you doing this? One of the things I love is this. You could get somebody in grade 5 and the teacher says, Jeremy, you'll never amount to anything. And Jeremy A goes, oh, and their entire life is set up for failure from there on.
Yeah,
You can get another Jeremy where the teacher says that, and that Jeremy goes, F
watch me.
you,
Yeah,
watch me,
watch me.
baby.
Yeah,
And when I'm a billionaire, I'm going to come visit you. Right.
right, right.
And so it's our mindset determines how we see the world. And that's why listening and working with people like you gives us the benefit of your confidence in us. Because oftentimes what you're doing in your book is lending people your confidence. So for a moment, they can go, maybe I deserve this. Maybe I can do this too. And leveraging your confidence sets them on the journey. And in that journey, they get experience and strength and become the person that you always wanted them to be.
Yeah, and I think just honing into your why and then realizing that it's not a destination. It's not because okay, you want to build a company.
It's a direction, baby.
It's a
Yeah.
direction. That's it. That's it. Because when you get there, there's always going to be another level. I promise you. I've tried. You can't catch it. There's always another level. Just I want to touch on one thing that you just said that I say all the time. I firmly believe in life there is nothing more than a series of events.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a good thing or a bad thing that happens to you or for you or us. It's the actions and emotions that we place on those events that later determine if they were good or bad. So your analogy of the fifth grade Jeremy, 100% right. But the cool thing is that's an internal deal. We can decide that. We can decide, and you can take a breath like, hey, take your breath. How do I want to react to this? Oh, that's going to be funny. It's going to be interesting. It's your choice, not external,
Yeah.
internal of how you choose to take actions and elicit emotions to that event that determines if it's going to be a good thing or a bad thing for you.
Crikey, you're smart, Jeremy.
I don't know about that, but
The before we part company, a few questions.
sure.
Jeremy, what brings joy into your life?
My kids, my wife.
Nice. And what's a mind hack you'd like to share with our listeners? Something they can implement right away that would make them better, stronger, faster, sexier.
Yeah, I think the obviously leaning off of the figure out what your why is, but then I think communication. Really think about, and it all has to do with the things we talked about, your authentic self and who you are, but ask sometimes, and I'm not good at this sometimes, right? Sometimes we need help. And that could become from a mentor, a friend, a family member, or we've got emotions. Communicate, like share how you feel, be vulnerable on that, and then you'll be surprised. You'll have someone that maybe feels similarly or dissimilarly. And the communication, especially coming out of this pandemic that we had, where we're all social and only on phones. Have a conversation. Let's go to that coffee shop and sit down and ask how someone's doing or what's going on with them, and then share that communication and listen, like right, 2 ears, listen more than you're speaking, and that it just it's good for the soul. It's good to learn, and I think that's really something I would encourage you, because you never know where it takes you. That conversation, that interaction.
Absolutely. I think words to live by. Jeremy, thanks so much for coming on the program. Really enjoyed it. And we're going to put all the links so people can find you in the show notes. Thanks again.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
If you enjoyed this episode, please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. And if you're looking for more tools, go to my website at nolimitselling.com. I've got a free mind training course there that's going to teach you some insights from the world of neuro-linguistic programming, and that is the fastest way to get better results.